I'm Julie Saunders.
I'm Jan Wilson. Julie and I both have experience as school librarians, and we've worked together as district library leaders.
In each episode, we'll dive into our profession with interviews and meaningful content to inspire you. We're not experts,
but we're pretty close.
The ideas and opinions shared by any host, guest, or listener are their own and do not represent those of any respective school district.
Welcome to Library Exchange.
This episode is sponsored by Niswonger AV, Advancing Technology, Designing Spaces.
Niswonger AV is your comprehensive K-12 education partner. With 50 years of expertise, Niswonger AV delivers innovative technology and strategic furniture solutions that transform learning environments.
Why choose Niswonger AV? Cutting-edge AV technology, intelligent furniture design, a consultant-driven approach, and family-owned commitment to excellence.
Advancing technology and learning spaces with old-fashioned personal service, because your library deserves more. Hi, Julie.
Hey, Jan. Good to see you.
Julie, we have another listener question to answer, and this gives our guests a little time to think about it as well. The question is from Mario in Chicago. What's your response when people ask, why do we still need libraries?
Oh, I really like that question. I'm going to take a second to think about it and let you answer first.
Oh, okay. Put me on the spot. Well, my first reaction sometimes is to say kind of sarcastically, it's the one space where you can go where browsing is encouraged and no one's trying to sell you anything.
True.
But truly, I think about that libraries provide access to information. They're hubs of the community, hubs in their schools as well. It's a safe space. What about you, Julie?
Well, I feel like when I think of libraries, there's nothing more American or patriotic than a library. It's a place where you have the freedom to explore, to think, to dream. It's basically the intellectual foundation of any free and democratic society, right? It's about helping people pursue those interests and contribute to a quality of life. And I have a few more things to say about it because this is our passion. Our students are able to explore new ideas that they want to learn more about in a place that doesn't ask for anything in return. Our preschool population and the public libraries, places where families can experience wonderful experiences, quality experiences, and those students or those future students are learning how to explore and think and dream in a safe place. And part of the population I think we often forget is our aging population and how important libraries are to our aging population. And I have a story about that. I think about my mother-in-law who's in her 80s. And I want to give a shout out to that Charlotte Mecklenburg library system that makes sure that she has the library services and is matched up with those perfect books. That helps her feel valued and it helps her to achieve that quality of life in her aging years. Not only that, but they also have celebrated her accomplishments of having read the most books in the community last year. And those things really make her have a quality of life so important. That's what we all want. Mm-hmm. Libraries matter.
Yeah, mine sounds very superficial. I'm glad I went first.
So answering this question could be more than an entire episode, but I am looking forward to our guest and discussion.
Yes, Christy James is a former middle school English and social studies teacher and is Charleston County School District's Library and Media Services Coordinator.
In 2020, Christy was named a Library Journal Movers and Shakers Innovator and created a program to address her district's school librarian shortage, which we can't wait to share with our listeners.
So welcome to Library Exchange, Christy. Before we start our conversation, how do you answer the question of why do we still need libraries?
Well, the easy way is to just say everything that Jan and Julie said, but because that question has come up, I think that's a fantastic listener question. And I think what makes libraries so important is that they are constantly evolving, and that evolution is always based on community needs. They're not necessarily chasing a trend or chasing the next big tech piece. They are evolving because our schools have evolved and what our students need in our schools has evolved. So our libraries are changing to make sure that the kids are getting everything they need with the access, with the information. Information literacy is huge right now. But also, I think about our public library. Julie, I love that you shouted out Charlotte Meck's system, because I feel so blessed to be in Charleston County. Our public library does such a fantastic job meeting our community needs, that they really truly are looking to see beyond the books, which are, of course, always going to be the foundation. What else can they provide? What do they see that businesses need? What do families need? What do individuals need with health, with food security? And our libraries are evolving to do that. So libraries are very, very important. We
Oh, great.
absolutely need them.
Great answer. Mic drop on that one. Good job.
Yeah, that. To use the word evolve
Yes,
with libraries when people don't think they have, because there's such a
absolutely.
stereotype. So thank you for that, Christy.
So let's start by describing your district, the number of schools and enrollment. Anything you want to tell us about Charleston County School District?
So, Charleston County is the second largest district in South Carolina. We serve about 50,000 students. We have a variety of program schools, charter schools, and traditional public schools, everything from Montessori to early learning centers to advanced studies for or advanced centers for study, which are like our new improved tech schools. And we're also a huge district. It's over 110 miles from the school that is furthest north in our district to the school that is furthest south. And we have a school that has less than 100 kids. And we also have the second largest high school in the state. So
Wow.
it's very diverse as far as rural populations, suburban, urban, and we're also ethnically diverse. We've got one of the fastest growing multilingual populations, both Spanish and Portuguese, as well as a very historically diverse population. And it's full of history, full of culture, and it's fantastic. But we've got 76 schools, and they are all fully staffed by certified school librarians.
So, Christy, after serving as a middle school librarian for three or so years, you advanced to a leadership position, demonstrating a passion for making positive changes. What events or experiences facilitated this move for you?
When I had moved from the classroom to the school library, I thought, oh my goodness, this is my dream job because I get to work with the kids and I get to work with the teachers. It's all instruction based. While I was serving as a teacher librarian, I was honored to be chosen as our school's teacher of the year and advanced to being one of the district finalists. In that role, I got to attend a lot of different district meetings, be part of discussions with district leaders, and I recognized that the library voice just hadn't been heard before, that it wasn't so much that they were against libraries, it was that they weren't even thinking about libraries. And when the opportunity came up for this district role, I was really motivated by the advocacy opportunity, thinking about how do we get a seat at the table? How do we make sure that the people who are doing such great work in our libraries, because even though I'd only been in the library 3 years, I was constantly amazed at the services being provided by my fellow librarians, that it was a group doing fantastic work that just wasn't being considered. So that advocacy piece was absolutely the motivating factor.
Wow, great. So there was a period of time in your district when principals were struggling to fill school library positions. You led the change in that staffing process. Can you describe how you approached this challenge?
I took this role at the very end of the 2017 school year. So in April of 2017, I was offered this position. I was so excited. I was thinking of all the things I wanted to do. And then the reality hit that we had 18 school openings, which again, 76 schools, 18 openings is significant. In South Carolina, schools are required to have a certified 1.0 FTE librarian, and we just didn't have candidates out there. The principals did not have candidates to choose from. And even the candidates they were getting, a few people would be like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect candidate. But a lot of other schools were like, well, there was only one candidate, so this is who we ended up with, which is not the situation that they were having with classroom teachers. And I wanted principals to have that kind of opportunity to really find the perfect fit for their school and their school's goals and needs. So I worked with our director of human resources. Actually, he's got a much longer title. Bill Brigman is fantastic. He's our HR guru. And he's been a visionary as far as looking at innovative ways to meet staffing needs. We'd had year after year after year where we could not find enough candidates to fill all our positions. They'd tried sharing schools, they'd tried sharing allocations, and that wasn't providing schools the services they need, and they were still coming up short. Bill and I talked about having a partnership with the University of South Carolina, which has a nationally ranked library school program. And since the program's entirely online, it would allow us to create a cohort program where current classroom teachers could actually pursue their library degree and enter a school library while finishing that degree. And the school district would provide financial support for it, and we would get in return a 5-year commitment for that. The initial interest was huge, and that started in 2018, and we just launched our 7th cohort 2 weeks ago.
Wow,
Wow.
great.
Super successful. And one thing I notice or I hear in your story is especially in large school districts, we find that it can be difficult to collaborate with other departments. And you talked about the fact that they weren't necessarily against libraries, it wasn't on their radar. So which relationships again would you say with central office leaders were impactful in achieving that goal? And then we've also heard you discuss funding goals.
So I think there were a couple relationships that became really important. One was to make sure that I was able to start talking with our district curriculum specialists, thinking about our roles as teachers and co-teachers and collaborators. We wanted to make sure that those leaders understood, one, the resources that were already available in their library and digitally, but also the resource in the school librarian who was serving in that school. That was huge, making sure that they understood our libraries today way more than just story time and book checkout. Yes, those things still happen. We haven't gotten rid of that, but making sure that they understood that we have national standards. They're process standards, which mean that we can choose how we approach the content, but all of the content we can pull directly from state standards. So we can support 4th grade science, or we can support 9th grade English. And it's the way we go about approaching it that makes it unique for libraries. So that curriculum connection and really making sure they understood our instructional role was important. And then the other part was getting in front of principals and helping principals just understand our basic roles. What are the 5 key roles that librarians serve? We had updated our job description shortly after I took this position because I realized that the library job description and a classroom teacher position were the exact same. The only difference was that the library required a master's degree. Didn't even say what the master's degree had to be, even though our state requires the MLIS. So we used AASL's guidelines as far as being an instructor, a teacher, a co-teacher, all of those things, a program administrator, and we outlined our job description update. And then we started keeping some data, and principals love data. Principals love to get a little competitive. And those were the 2 primary relationships that are still an ongoing growth piece. We have not achieved everything we want to, but the reality is that what I had initially wanted was a seat at the table. People actually are thinking, oh, we're talking about instruction. We need to see where libraries fit in. We're talking about meeting this specific achievement goal. we need to see how libraries can support this and what resources are there.
Wow, great. Communication was really key in that. Thank you for sharing all of that. So we learned that your summer reading or the summer reading program in particular was your first major initiative in your position. Can you tell us more about that?
Because I took the position in April, end of April, all of a sudden I was being inundated with all of these questions about, so what are we doing for summer reading? And when I reached out to the public library, they said, okay, here's a copy of our log. You all usually just do the same and just do minutes. I think they were doing pages and we were doing minutes, or maybe it was vice versa. But essentially, we were sending two different logs home with families with two different sets of directions. And because it was April, we kind of had to go with it that first year, but it was so messy. And I was like, I'm confused and I don't want to do this. And I love to read. So the following spring, we had the opportunity to go back to the public library. I said, what would it take for us to do this together? So we can at least offer one single log, one single set of directions. How do we push this out so it doesn't feel like duplicated or competing efforts? And that was the middle of March. And 6 weeks later, we had a fully unified program. We had a data sharing agreement in place, and we had all 50,000 students pre registered for summer reading.
Wow,
Whoa.
nice.
Were there some bumps? There were some bumps. But when we went back at the end of the program, all of those bumps were worth it because the families saw the value, they appreciated the simplicity, and our librarians were just, oh, that was a lot easier. Yes, it was. It was very valuable, and we've just continued to tweak that.
Christy, you introduced the public library to the reading app Bean Stack, whereas some public libraries have it before school systems. So I know that was a great partnership that you shared with families and your public library.
Beanstack came about 3 years after we
Oh,
started doing this.
okay.
So we've only had Beanstack a few years, but once we got going with Beanstack, we're like, oh, we're using this for summer reading. Somebody should tell the public library we're using this for summer reading.
Great.
And continuing with your partnership with the public library, that led to securing a federal childhood grant. So, what are some of the programs and benefits that your students and community have experienced as a result of this grant?
The early childhood grant was specific to a few schools to get parents involved with early literacy. Um, we got that just before the pandemic, so we had to do some twists and turns as it was implemented, but it helped get public librarians into our schools, and we were using similar terminology as far as our story time approach, as well as using those funds to get take-home books. And we were using the public library's expertise around that to help choose specific take-home books that would foster specific skills. But we were doing this all at the schools and through the communication with the schools and the families to help make that connection. Beyond that grant, though, we have actually been able to implement a full one card, one student system. So all 50,000 of our students automatically have a public library card the minute that they are enrolled in CCSD. That has been going on for, I think, 5 years now. And again, that's continued to evolve. But we also use each other as communication conduits. The public library is fantastic about providing information, especially to our more rural communities, about telehealth. A number of the branches have these fresh food fridges, which are just incredible. They're these big industrial size fridges with fresh produce and recipes and ideas for healthy meals, and it's all right there. They help us with registration. So they'll provide notary services when our kids need to register and they need to have a notarized address or other requirements for the registration. It's been a very fluid, growing partnership, but it all started with summer reading, and we can't imagine not having that partnership with all the resources they're able to provide for our students and families.
Wow,
We
that's
love
amazing.
public
We
libraries.
do. We do.
We love them.
So, can you share a story which made you realize that the public library partnership was positively impacting families in the community?
Gosh, there have been so many, but I think even just going back to when we first started that summer reading program together, that was what was really making it visible to the community that we were working together. During the summer, one of our schools had a summer literacy night, just kind of a impromptu meetup at the school. They'd invited the public library, of course. They were letting kids pick up prizes, give away books, had other materials for adults. And there was a family with some young kids. And when the kids spotted the public librarian, they ran up and they were so excited, big hugs all around. And then they turned around and they saw their school librarian. And the mom was so happy. She was just like, oh my gosh, everything we need is just right here. And it just made sense for us to be in the same room at the same place when we're serving our community together.
That's a great story. Christy, availability and year round services are important. And now, just from a few short minutes with you, it goes by really fast. I see why you were named a mover and shaker, because you came in, you discussed issues, and you were very proactive in finding solutions, because we're serving both students and their families when we can make these things happen. And we play a vital role in that. So I hope you know how instrumental you've been in fostering those connections with your community.
And I want to add how impressive it is that you helped create that partnership and helped develop the program with the University of South Carolina to assist teachers in funding their MLIS degree and securing a role as school librarians. It's so inspiring. It's one that we loved hearing about and are excited to share. We wanted to thank you so much for your time and for sharing valuable insights with us today.
Thank you all. And I would be remiss if I did not shout out my amazing school librarians, because all the things I get to do are because they are doing the really important work and the valuable work day in, day out with our kids and our teachers.
Absolutely.
Yes, give them a shout out. They deserve it. They really deserve it.
They deserve all that and more.
All right. Thanks again, Christy. So, Julie, we've exchanged ideas during our discussion. It's now time for the recap.
It was so interesting just hearing about the differences in the size and demographics of each of her schools in her district. More importantly, of the 76 schools, she pointed out that they were all fully staffed with certified librarians.
Yeah. Shout out to the University of South Carolina, which is probably difficult for you to hear because that's an SEC team.
Her dogs.
Right? But shout out to them for their cohort partnership and for her district helping with financial support so that there is a certified school librarian in every school.
I really think that being one of her first initiatives as a district leader, she really saw advocacy as an opportunity rather than an obstacle for librarians that are out there listening who feel like their administrative staff or their teachers don't understand what they do. There were so many lessons that we can learn from Christy. She identified a problem. She figured out who would be the right partner. She presented the problem with some possible solutions. And then together they worked toward the goal. Talk about collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Are you looking at my notes? Okay, because I had that she recognized an issue, which was staffing.
Mm-hmm.
The next year, the issue was summer reading. She found a solution by collaborating with other people. And along with our previous episode with Amy Herman, I hope people realize that you're going to hear Julie and myself talk about the importance of talking about our profession and talking about our library programs and events. Never stop educating others about our impact.
So I know you had a shout out to the University of South Carolina, but Christy's influence in helping that pipeline to make sure that they had qualified candidates in their district when at the time they were having trouble finding people to fill the positions. She knew she had to help fix that problem, and she went to the right people. She partnered with her HR, district personnel, worked with the University of South Carolina, and created a cohort where the district provided financial support and attracted those talented candidates. I just think it's amazing. We saw change happen in that conversation.
Yes.
Incredible.
She did stress the importance of relationships. She met with school principals, and then she met with central office personnel. And she said, now when departments begin discussing instruction, libraries are part of it. And isn't that what we want?
It
Hello?
is. Yes, absolutely. And it's not just a matter of them not prioritizing that. They really just weren't aware. And it's so important to continue to advocate at the district level, at the school level, so that people understand that libraries have evolved in many ways, including what instructional support looks like in a modern library.
So I have my analogy, Julie, about the grocery store and the kitchen. Is it appropriate to share?
Absolutely. Yes, of course.
So I'll see if I get it right. So this is Doug Johnson, many, many years ago, said we need to stop thinking of the school library like a grocery store. It's not just a place where you go in, find items, and leave. It is like a kitchen where students come in, they stay because it's a space for activity and creation.
That never gets old.
Yeah, I wish I had a shopping cart to
To put all those great ideas in and then walk right out the door.
But my great ideas could just fit in one of those baskets. I don't think I could fill up a shopping cart. But if you don't like what you're hearing about your school library or perspectives of the school library and our role as librarians, you have to change the narrative. And you don't have to be loud about it. Just talk about those positive things wherever and whenever you can.
Updating job descriptions, increasing the school librarian pipeline, increasing funding, educating other district departments on the librarian role, and growing the public and school library partnership in her district. Whew! I can't think of better examples of transformative leadership. Charleston County, South Carolina is so lucky to have Christy James. Make sure to visit our website at www.libraryexchangepodcast.com.
You'll find episode notes and links. You can even submit your questions or inspiring stories that may be featured on the podcast.
If you're looking for some swag for your library or book-loving friends, visit libraryexchange.etsy.com.
That's a lot of URLs, so I'm glad you had to say all of that, Julie.
Thanks for joining us. We can't wait to have you back for our next episode of Library Exchange.